What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 167 of the Lombard Trucking Show. Thank you guys all for being here. Appreciate you tuning in. For the first time, look at it. Look how far we've come. We're live on Facebook tonight. We're live on Instagram tonight. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube. We're covering all tracks for a dope conversation with a very good friend of mine who I've had the pleasure of meeting several times at some truck shows. We're going to dive into one of my favorite topics. I don't shy away from this topic at all on Instagram for good measure. I often tell people in conversation, I don't believe that you are robophobic enough in a lot of ways, and it has. And I get the AI supporters, the robosexuals, in my replies and DMs, who think that it's anti-progress, you're anti-technology, you're the horse breeder downplaying the car sort of thing. But the going from horse to car is a whole lot different because the car still connected more people, the train connected more people, the steam engine connected people, whereas AI is doing everything, and millions of dollars are invested into disconnecting people. Sorry, is the proper term. I mean, that's exactly what AI's true purpose is, to cut it out. And I don't think at the end of the day, people want another workflow or seamless streamlining or uh, whatever that it is that they're trying to market it, however they hype it up. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to businesses aren't successful without people. I think that gets forgotten. The only reason a business exists is to solve the problem for people. And so if you're doing everything you can to get rid of the connection with people, then eventually you're never going to understand business again, because it is people who driven it. People invest in your business. People are your customers. People also happen to be your employees. And when you start to edge that out as much as you can, and you've ground that down to so many seamless things you could do with AI and automation and this fascinating technology, where do you wind up? Where does the road end? And guest I'm bringing on today, he's a former guest of the show, Mr. James Year. Before I bring him on here, he recently had a documentary that was contracted through the independent media source called More Perfect Union. And More Perfect Union is they're, as I said, independent media source. They kind of focus on labor issues going on throughout the industry. And I want to play number one. If you're in the comments, shout out Wolfgang for tuning in. If you're in the comments, let me know if you can hear this. But I want to play the first 90 seconds before I bring James on, because this will kind of be gearing the conversation of where we're headed. But check this out. All right. So I see that there's some no audio on the video. Let me try something out here. Can you hear this video? All right, so there you have it. Not sure if you're able to hear the audio. The mic, plug the mic back in for you, but I'm going to bring him up on the stage. Mr. James Year, what's happening, brother?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just hanging out and having a good time.
Dude, good to have you here. Sorry if there was some audio issues. Not sure if anybody on Instagram can see what's happening. Appreciate you guys tuning in the comments. But dude, that documentary, 2.7 million views on YouTube. It's got a lot of reaction. I mean, it has thousands of comments. I mean, talk about what it's like. How'd you get how'd you get into being able to make that documentary?
It was actually kind of a freak occurrence. I went along with a buddy out to a festival out in West Virginia. As a friend, Matt Callahan, he used to be a Marine combat camera guy, and he was like, "Hey, dude, you want to go to this festival?" I was like, "Sure." Got nothing else going on. Got there, and I saw John Russell of More Perfect Union out in the crowd, and then basically was like, "Oh shit, here's my chance," because I had pitched that story to every legacy media outlet like New York Times, Wall Street Journal, all that, everything you can think of for 2 years. Then I see the guy from MPU in the crowd, and basically strong armed him, sat his ass down, was like, "Hey, I'm working on something that you might be interested in," and basically gave him a hard pitch type of thing. Then sent him some materials, the following day, and then a week later I had a meeting with MPU. And 2 days later, it was like green, or the next day after the weekend, it was greenlit. Then a week later, I was in Mats, and it just kind of went from there. So basically, it was a hell of a lot of nothing but running into brick walls. And then I just see a guy out in the crowd, and basically it all starts happening right then and there.
I think that's important because it's a theme of probably a lot of content I post. It's a theme of what we talk about on Iron Minds on Tuesday mornings. The idea, and as an endurance guy, I'm there's just it's about not giving up. And I think people, and for anybody who's tuning in, James has come on the show for the past several years, and he's been coming on Freight podcasts for a while now, talking about AI and automation in the supply chain. I mean, this was basically the crux of a lot of what you did in grad school was putting that together, which I'd love for you to pitch in a moment. But for years, again, if you were able to listen to the audio in the beginning, let's talk about what the threats of AI and automation are. Not, I mean, it's not just how it's going to affect the supply chain, but how it's going to affect, I mean, the rest of the United States, the rest of working class and middle management jobs, and really where it's coming for. And James has been banging down the door of media outlets with hard facts, data, legislative action, things that are going on. And what's incredible is, people don't want to hear these stories. So stories that people want. Again, 2.7 million views, A More Perfect Union, and New York Times, other clown media companies. That's the thing is, I believe, and we'll get into this. I don't want to get off on a super tangent. I want to let you have the show, but I don't think mainstream media likes to bring up AI, automation, this stuff, because it's unifying. Again, I think the media in this country is literally is like Scrooge McDuck. They swim in bathtubs full of money over how can we polarize people. Let's talk about, like, the people are so driven on Israel Palestine. People have been driven on that topic for 2,000 years, and we're still here ripping each other at the seams for it. Ukraine war, the culture wars, anything that can rip people into ones and zeros where where the connection and the conversation can't be met at all, makes a lot of money. Fear. And I said it in the last podcast, and when I recapped the 70.3, outrage is the new addiction in America. But your documentary and a lot of stuff you're working on brings together right and left, blue collar, white collar. It brings people together. And that's what I find most fascinating. And that's what I love, of the fact that you haven't given up. You're not going to stop there. So after the documentary came out, what was kind of the original aftermath that's kind of popped up from that? What's been the feedback?
Oh, as far as feedback, it's been, I never thought I'd be looking at the YouTube comment section as a place for inspiration for hope type of a thing. But yeah, pretty much everybody across the gamut, left side or left wing, right wing, and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty universal acclaim type of thing. Granted, like, you'll get some of the tech snobs out there being like Luddites, blah 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 blah. But yeah, overwhelmingly it was a big success. But on a personal note, that was like the first story that I've ever gotten, first national story that I've ever gotten published ever. And then, in the first day, it was trending at like number 8 on YouTube type of thing with like 1.5 million views like the first day, and now total between YouTube and Instagram it's over 7, type of thing, and that's not counting everything else, type of thing. So, and then there's all the podcasts. Like the total reach of this whole thing has been insane. Like it's yeah. So it definitely took a lot of time to adjust to that whole dynamic type of thing, but definitely created some new opportunities. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, where and just so people know, so what are you currently up to right now? What's your current like you? Well, first explain your grad project number one, and then also would love to hear what you're currently up to.
yeah, so like the entire story started off as like a long form documentary photojournalism project, type of thing for my master's up at Syracuse University. But yeah, in the 2 years that I was up there working on it, year and a half, depending on how you fudge the numbers on it, it ended up being like 27 states and 25,000 miles worth of travel, with about like 12,000 of those being ride-alongs with drivers, type of thing. So basically, every summer, anytime I can get, I would, or any chance I can get, I would get off in the truck and go trucking, just to kind of see, what the job was, what the issues were, type of a thing, and then basically catalog all the issues that I kept hearing drivers complain about, like the driver shortage, conditions on the road, not being able to use the bathrooms, when they're at warehouses and so on and so forth. And it's like, oh shit, this is like just labor issue after labor issue after labor issue. And yeah, that's basically the reason why in my opinion, why the MPU thing was so successful, is that basically it just like took drivers common gripes and issues and stuff, and just repackaged it in a way that was like accessible and agreeable to people on the left, type of a thing. So basically it was just kind of like translating everything that drivers are griping about, and just making a common sense argument about it.
Yeah, and where can people go find that research by chance?
Oh, for like More Perfect Union, you mean?
Well, no,
Or
for your grad project, I believe you have a website with a lot of your information.
Yeah. So the website has a stealingfire.tech. So you can find some stuff on there. I'm currently in the middle of overhauling it, type of a thing, to make it more of a educational platform, type of a thing. So they're expect to see some changes on there, but there should be some stuff on there as of now. Apart from that, like you got Aurora and Kodiak Robotics are both publicly traded companies. So all their investor materials are public information, and that's where I went in to dig to find all the narrative differences between what they're telling the general public and regulators and all that. So yeah, if you go to their investor materials websites, like that's where the good stuff is.
Let's actually dive into that real quick. I'd love to kind of rehash that narrative. So, for anybody listening, Aurora and Kodiak are two of the leading names with robot trucks out there, and Aurora's been public. I mean, two years ago, they were at the Mid America Truck Show in Louisville, Kentucky, with what looked like a somewhat of a PR move to try to I believe try to lure people on their side and into what they're trying to do. But you've kind of caught them in the lie and what they're talking about. And in a way, what Aurora's been doing has almost been a lie to people who've invested.
Yeah, so like as far as like the narrative differences and stuff, like when they're talking to if you go into YouTube and start looking at like when Chris Hermson went to like the Senate and House like transportation committees and all that kind of stuff, they're always talking about all the new jobs they're going to create, how it's going to be like bigger, faster, greener, smarter, more environmentally friendly and all that kind of stuff. But when you really dig into the weeds there, it's like obviously anytime, like no one's going to be automating anything like this if it's going to increase their labor cost, right? So like you're always going to have a net loss of jobs. And then like there's all the other things where like they might not be lying per se, but like if you're not going to be including the fact that like, hey, we're only taking the middle mile, but then you're not including like Gatic AI, which has already been hauling driverless freight for class 7 box trucks for like Amazon and Kroger and some other big box grocery retailers like that. This is one of those things where every part of the supply chain is going to get automated. And if you're only talking about the handful of like remote service operators, like remote control gamer guys that like move the trucks, which aren't required to have CDLs, um, type of thing. Like if you're only, at the end of the day, it's going to be a net loss of jobs whenever this gets to scale, and they're not saying that part out loud, right? But when you go into the investor reports, like the 2021 Aurora investment thesis, they're speaking directly about the 1.2 million owner operators and how this industry is ripe for consolidation, type of a thing. So like, yeah, the investors are getting a version of the story that's much closer to what we're going to end up seeing.
Okay, so so basically, to sum it up, Aurora is telling the general public, "Hey, it's okay. Yeah, it's a gaslight," and people have actually kind of been vocal on it on LinkedIn of this idea of AI. I love it. It's my favorite phrase that people have been saving, which is what people have been saying, which is AI is not going to take anybody's jobs. It's only going to take away the jobs from people who don't learn how to use AI, which is probably which is the most egregious thing I could have ever heard. And that's kind
Yeah.
of that's kind of the hard line that they're trying to tell people. But Aurora is trying to tell the general public it's going to be okay. It's going to create more jobs. But then once the doors are shut and money's in the conversation, they
Mhm.
realize that most of the trucking industry, and for anybody who doesn't know, most of the trucking industry is operated by small fleets and owner operators, so businesses. So you said 1.7 million small trucking companies, and they refer to it as ripe for consolidation, which means the elimination of not just jobs, but 1.7 million small businesses.
Or yeah, 1.2 million as of the
1.2.
figure. Yeah. But yeah, like there's all the yeah, it really just kind of depends on like the seat of power being occupied to who gets what story type of thing there. But like ultimately, as far as the original master's project and everything goes, like sure, it was about trucking, but it was more of for the original project at least, it was more of looking at trucking as a job type of thing, just like any other, and basically how AI was going to be used and what that means for every other industry type of thing. Because like outside of trucking, you still hear, like in manufacturing, you still hear the same sales pitches where it's like, oh, there's not enough workers. Well, and wanting to go in the factories, but why is that? Because it turns out if you're talking about like warehouses specifically, like in Amazon facilities and stuff, you've heard stories about the piss bottles and screen chambers and stuff, or the soundproof, rooms that workers can go into to like break down without anybody hearing, type of a thing. So there's plenty of other industries that are automating too, and you always hear that labor shortage narrative getting pushed, regardless if it's trucking or not. So, like as far as the original project goes, is more of an analogy type of thing to kind of talk about where all jobs are heading, not necessarily trucking.
Yes, I'm curious. So the shortage narrative, for anybody tuning in, that seems to be, is that the main crux of kind of how AI and supply chain has been kind of pandering for money? Would you say that that's one of the biggest like calling card is like, hey, there's not enough people to do these jobs. We're here to solve that problem.
Uh, I don't know if it would be the main one wholesale, but like, at least in manufacturing, warehousing, transportation, all that kind of stuff, like you always hear that line where it's like, oh, well, our turnover rates are so high. And the answer is always to automate. And it's never like, well, what if we just treat people like people and then, you know, maybe fix the retention crises that way, but
No.
wholesale, that wouldn't be comfortable saying that's the case everywhere, but that, as far as like the blue collar working class jobs, that's usually what the case is.
Now, when it comes to a lot of these companies, when it comes to the robosexuals, they believe that it will drive down prices. They think there's this ruse, I believe, that's going on where people think that this stuff will make things less expensive. But what's odd about that is we've been in a freight recession for since 2022. Freight rates have seen historic lows. FreightWaves has an entire page dedicated to trucking companies who have gone bankrupt. We've had multi-generational trucking companies go bankrupt. So as rates have actually been historically low, it's almost never been cheaper in the past year and a half to move anything by truck. I haven't seen any prices go down of really that much anything. I'd still say, home prices are what they are. Things are far different than what it was in 2020, 2019.
Mhm.
It is there some sort of is there any sort of merit to people who claim that robot trucks are going to make anything cheaper?
Uh, yeah, so like they absolutely are going to be lowering like the um, per mile unit cost of getting, or a per mile labor cost of getting something down the interstate. So like I think Aurora in their most recent investment report said that anywhere from 25 to 40% reduction in labor cost per mile type of thing. So like the question is that who's going to get to see those savings and where are those savings going to go? So if you're talking about like whether that's going to get passed on to consumers or not, I would be extremely skeptical that that would be the case, because why would consumers see that when they're already expecting to see higher prices anyway, right? And then like as far as the technology lowering prices for consumers and stuff, you've got like Mark, what's that guy's name? Like Mark Andreessen, the big shot investor or whatever, saying that like once robots start building their other robots, or robots building more robots and assembly lines, and then like all the spooky magic of economics takes over, and then the prices are going to start crashing, and it's going to lead to some like consumer utopia where everything will be dirt cheap and limitless, and we'll be able to buy and do whatever we want. Um, but that's all predicated on the assumption that we're still going to have money to spend
I think
to
that
buy the new cheap crap. So I'm extremely skeptical of all that. Namely, being is that like if technology made things cheaper, why is healthcare so expensive? Why is housing so expensive? Why are groceries so expensive right now? Because we've got more technology in agriculture and all these other things, especially automotive, um, than we've ever had before. But prices still keep going up. So I'll
it,
believe the lower prices when I see it, which I don't think I ever will.
it's an odd conundrum only because we live in this we live in this shareholder market, and the idea, like Mark Andreessen, I forget where he came from too, what company, um, what company he came from. I know because I see I see him on Twitter. But basically, if he believes, if there's this utopia where things are going to basically get cheaper and things drop to very dirt cheap prices, what does that look like in the shareholder economy, 401ks? I mean, in general, like if people are making less money and things cost less, why are they going to pay $14.99 for Netflix? Is Netflix then still worth $14.99? Or just in general, any companies love to brag about their revenue. We revenued, Walmart, for example, and Walmart's supply chain is very robust. But so Walmart revenues however much money. If everything really, and Walmart sells things predominantly very inexpensive products.
Mhm.
So if prices along the or drop, what company is going to turn back and go to their shareholders, investors, be like, "Hey, our revenue just dropped from 300 billion down to $1 million because now everything's dirt cheap because of technology." What does that look like for financial futures, like where those numbers come kind of crashing down? That's always my biggest takeaway, that stuff. But neither here nor there. I'd love to talk about some more uh, AI and supply chain updates. You said there's been some new information that's been going on. I'd love to hear what you've been kind of researching, what conversations you've been having, what topics you've been kind of diving into.
Yeah. So as far as like new developments with autonomous, ever since Aurora put the first driverless truck down on I-45 around public infrastructure, um, yeah, like right now it's kind of in a holding pattern right now, because like the main thing that's holding the industry back is going to be the insurance and liability aspect of it, type of thing. So in the meantime, like they're still testing new things. The biggest thing right now is going to be rain and high winds. And then later on, I think 27, 28 or something like that, then they're going to be pushing further north, type of a deal. But the other big thing, due to the insurance and liability risks, they haven't had any major orders coming in from OEMs, Volvo, Packard, whoever else, type of thing. So like the assembly lines for Class 8 bigger trucks haven't started happening yet, but I would imagine within the next year or 2 years, especially with this current administration, who seems very hesitant to regulate literally anything about this, and is actively rolling out the red carpet for any and all things AI. That I would be on the lookout for any federal legislation that restricts nuclear verdicts, because the second that happens, you're going to see a lot more interest and potentially the first large scale orders coming in, type of a thing.
Okay, so so kind of to break that down, Barney style for me. Basically, you're saying, so are there legislators who do want to bring forth legislation? So nuclear verdicts would be like big landmark cases. Like if something were to happen, if one of these robots were to kill somebody, and then somebody basically sues whoever, they sue, and then the award is for like $500 million. Like
Mhm.
there's so if legislation moves forward with that, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, so like what I'm saying is that if there are like restrictions placed on like the upper limits for nuclear verdicts for accidents and whatever else, like if there's restrictions put on that where the cost of doing business in terms of like the insurance liability or civil or liability for accidents and stuff, if that gets lowered, type of thing to make it even to help speed the advancement and market adoption of this, like that's going to be the thing that is really going to help uh, move autonomous forward, type of thing. So like in the next couple of years, at least within like this next administration, I would expect to see some sort of legislation on that, because like this state by state patchwork of regulations where you've got a handful of predominantly blue states up in the Northeast, also quasi California. Those tend to be the states that have the most regulation, or they completely ban the use of driverless vehicles, type of thing, type of a deal. But the state by state thing is not going to work whatsoever. There has to be some sort of a federal solution for it. And if AVA, the Autonomous Vehicle Industry Association, is going to get that done, this administration that we currently have is going to be the um, uh, administration to do that with.
That organization, what are they called? The Autonomous Vehicle. What are they
Yeah,
called?
AVA, so like Autonomous Vehicle Industry Association. So basically, they're the umbrella group that represents everybody in the space for the most part. So Kodiak, Aurora, Waymo, yeah, everybody.
And I'm assuming I'm sure that they're a nonpartisan, unbiased organization, as many organizations like to claim.
Mm.
Are there any actual truck drivers who work for that committee?
I think they're all basically tech bros cosplaying as truck drivers or cab drivers and stuff. Is usually is the case, type of thing. But like there's still plenty of like state by state legislation that's out there too. That's um, being advocated for to varying degrees of success. So
I do got to give it to gentleman Hedberg. Appreciate you jumping in here, Hedberg, gentleman I served in the Marines with. AI's big pockets. The thing is with AI's big pockets, and I'm curious your take on this, James, is AI gets its big pockets from investors. From investors, where are those investors getting the money? What are they hedging their bet on? If we're having conversations like this, if the general public, because that's the thing, is we're talking about a technology that is going to be rolled out carte blanche, that is going to affect the lives of millions of people, and nobody has any sort of, the market doesn't have an opinion on it. The market, because I think people forget when we talk about free markets, labor participates in markets as well as consumers can participate in markets, and consumers pick things. So, for example, if I make a better gaming system than Xbox, people can choose to buy my gaming system. But when it comes to this technology, when a bunch of computer companies are making technology that they are just going to kind of roll out, nobody's choosing to buy that. Nobody's choosing to buy this AI, as opposed to I make better Xbox, I make a better PlayStation, I make Lombard Station. It's the best video game software ever. People are gonna be like, man, I'm going to buy Lombard Station because I think it's better. Whereas this technology, you don't have that choice. Nobody's developing something better. something better is coming along the way, and other businesses are doing it. The consumers aren't buying any. They're not buying anything. They're not investing in any of this. So who's investing in this stuff?
As far as the investment, basically all the big shots. So like the tech companies, like the big five tech companies are going to be the first and foremost as far as R&D development and all that kind of stuff. And like right now we're in a huge bubble for it, and I would expect that to pop before too long, sort of a thing. But that's always by design. That stuff always happens, type of a deal. But as far as the investment and everything, like the reason that these guys are going like all in on developing this isn't a perfect example, but it's kind of like when the smartphone first came out. The first one to market is going to reap the lion's share of the benefits, type of thing. So like basically, iPhone was the first one out there. Now like they got up to 50% of market share before the rest could even catch up, right? And it's still like roughly half the smartphone market today. So whenever it comes to AI, and like right now we're just dealing with narrow AIs, but AGI is right around the corner, allegedly in the next or handful of years, or however many years.
What is AGI?
So like right now we have like ANI, or like artificial narrow intelligence. So like basically, if the AI that we can have now, we can teach it to play checkers, but it can't play chess, sort of a thing. AGI would basically be an AI that can be easily adaptable and do anything, kind of a thing. So like it can play checkers, chess, and do your taxes and whatever else, right? So that's basically like the holy grail that they're all gunning for like crazy right now, type of a thing. But and then back to another historical comparison, like the World Economic Forum said a few years back that AI is expected to be more transformative than the steam engine. And the steam engine is the closest historical example that fits anywhere remotely close to what we're doing. But the rate and scale of what's happening now compared to what happened then, back in like the 1790s type of thing, we're talking tortoises and hares. Like it's moving so much faster now, right? But even back then, with the steam engine, that forced the change between mercantilism, the last vestiges of feudalism, and forced the change into capitalism, right? So like right now, if we're talking about just insane amounts of job loss, where Wall Street, or Goldman Sachs just recently estimated that by 2045, half of American jobs could be gone, type of a thing. And that's just from AI. That's not including robotics and quantum. This if we're getting to the point where we're talking about universal basic income, and we have to start paying people free money to keep them to be able to buy things, that doesn't really sound like capitalism to me anymore. So I think we're going to get forced to play a new sort of game that we don't even have an ism for yet.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's why I love having these conversations. What do you think people should? I mean, number one, if Goldman Sachs is predicting by 2045 that half of U.S. jobs will be gone, I'm not sure why that they're still why they're not financially advising people on that issue, why they still loan money in certain ways. I'm curious why banks are still, for example, the city of Austin, city of Houston, more or less. The Houston's downtown real estate is like a ghost town. I think it's like 50% full. Something, I'd have to look it up. Somebody can fact check me on it if they really want to. But Houston's downtown real estate is whatever. And it's not a lot of people working there. Post-COVID world, remote work, we get it. But and not so much Houston, but Austin, very similar. A lot of downtown real estate. A lot of people aren't working downtown for some reason. Traffic still exists for some reason. I think people in Texas just like have a hard on for sitting in traffic. But so it's awkward, and they're still building high rises in Austin. And again, they cost God knows how much to build these towers, and contracting companies and whoever still seem to be loaning this money out for these high rises that have, and Google, and this is how much money tech has. People don't realize Google prints money so much to the point to where they can have all this downtown real estate and Meta and locked into leases and just not pay the rent in those buildings. So why are people building these high rises for a future where in 20 years, one generation, that is one group of kids going to high school from now, born today, in 20 years, will apparently have they will not be able to work half the current jobs that exist. Why are these high rises going up? Why are why are companies still getting this office real estate if this is the trajectory? I'm just curious your take.
So like right now, like a lot of the projections and stuff, obviously that hasn't happened yet, so it's still like quote unquote hearsay. But then there's also the other, historical narrative, which from a historical standpoint isn't wrong, but it's like, yeah, like granted, technology has killed plenty of jobs in the past, like say whaling. As soon as petrochemicals and electricity came along, like whaling just died completely within like a year or 2 years, type of thing. But luckily, there's all these other advancements that they were able to get more jobs fast enough to be able to offset the loss, right? So, if, like from a historical standpoint, like a lot of the economists and stuff, like there's a chance it could be right that we could be getting more jobs at a fast enough rate, type of a thing to offset the disruptions. But the thing is that this is happening so fast, and we all know the jobs that are going to be at risk, like say truckers, case in point, type of thing that we all know the jobs that are at risk now, but nobody can say what the hell the new jobs are going to be. Right. And, the disruptions happen first and the benefits happen later. But the other thing that has me concerned with the AI stuff, though, and, robotics and quantum is that, like 2 years from now, we could be having radically different conversations about what's at risk, what's not at risk. And say, like, if you're in a arts program right now learning animation, so to get in the video game industry or something like that, by the time you retrain into something else that might be viable, that might be at risk by the time you get certified with the new skills, just because of task encroachment, how fast this is advancing. So as far as like, why people are still investing in, high rises and lending money and stuff, like there's so much skepticism out there. But then there's, that historical narrative which is still pretty powerful, that a lot of people still believe in, that we'll be able to get all these new jobs. But anytime you start saying, but, wait, look at this and this and this, and, start talking about the rate and scale of the change, there's a lot of skepticism about that. And the judge is still out about who's right. But, based on the new, newer developments, especially in quantum computing and stuff, which is the 800-pound gorilla in the room that we haven't even started discussing yet. Who the hell knows?
Is what we're doing. Like I said, I consider you an expert in the space. I've followed you on Instagram for a while. You share a lot of, you share stuff. And this is why I know you're next level, is because you're sharing stuff in a conversation that is so above the line about these human related issues. Because really, this isn't a matter of, as I said at the beginning of the show, and for anybody who's just tuning in, this has nothing to do with. It's not like James and I are sitting here talking about how we need to stop the possible cure for cancer. Like this isn't what we're talking about, because and what's really made me just purely feel like dystopian is so many Sora videos have been showing up on my For You page, and just in that people are sharing. Sora, who is a fake video company that they're making, and they're making like fake news interviews and just these fake, like kind of funny meme videos. And it's like there's millions upon millions of dollars that has gone into that technology, and we're using natural resources to beam these data centers and these these servers to make all of these like fake useless videos, when it's just like, where is the cure for cancer? Where is the kind of, and I'm sure that there are advancements in the medical field that I don't really know about, but like that should be the gap. It shouldn't be like we went from the Wright brothers to the space shuttle in such a short amount of time. Like we're going from this AI where it's already eliminating jobs, and the jobs that it haven't eliminated are going to South America, the Philippines, or Armenia, or something like that. And so it's like, where is the good out of it? And so this isn't that necessarily that we want to stop the cure for cancer. It has everything to do with with being anti-human in a way. Is that's where it's kind of going, like to the point at which it's one thing to make a cartoon. Cartoons are art. Like I'm thinking about like Pokemon or whatever, because that's not human. There's no human actors. There's human voice actors, nonetheless. that do these things. But we're entertaining ourselves now with fake videos that we're sending to each other. It doesn't seem. Maybe this is my age speaking. Maybe 20-year-olds think this is cool and think this is totally okay. I don't know, but I don't think it's good for society.
Oh no, it's totally terrible for society. Yeah, there's a couple of years ago. There's a year and a half ago, I think it was a Europol came out and said that by I think it's 2027, upwards of 90% of everything that we see online could be fake and artificially generated. And the term I think they use there would be reality collapse or reality apathy, where no one can tell what's real anymore. And granted, I have a master's degree in multimedia photography and design and stuff, and I even have a hard time telling what's real and what's fake these days, type of thing too. And then you compound that with the dead internet theory, which I don't know if you've heard about, where basically like even guys like Sam Altman, I believe, if my memory serves, are even getting concerned about that, where yeah, people just won't be able to tell what's real anymore as a result of that. And if we live in a democracy where people you have to have an informed electorate to make good decisions on like who to elect and whatever else, that becomes impossible, type of thing. So yeah,
That's a great analogy that I've been using a lot. Is like we went from um, you think of music to listen to music, you either had to own a piano or go watch somebody play music, and then we had the dawn of vinyl, and then you had the cassette tape, the CD player, all the way up to what we have Spotify today. Now we have we have all this access to music and video and meta goggles, whatever that they want to do. We've gone full circle to where if you want to hear the most raw, authentic music you have to actually go back to the concert. And so it's like it was really great to see the ACL Music Festival this weekend. People enjoying like actual real music in person. It's great to see that as expensive that as those have gotten, they leave me hopeful that people still want that. So that clearly there's a human drive that still yearns for that in a certain way. Speaking of Sam Altman, you posted a quote from him today. Where Sam Altman said, "If jobs get wiped out, maybe they weren't even real work to begin with."
yeah, yeah. You hear a lot of real tone deaf stuff from those folks, but I'd be surprised if guys like that have ever worked a real job in their life. So I don't really take that with much salt. But like that's the other thing about like all these tech bros type of thing. Even especially in trucking, where they always say, "Oh, we're only taking the undesirable lanes," and I don't know, like I-45 is a hell of a lot of freight goes down I-45, and that pays a lot of people's grocery bills and rent and everything like that. And the fun thing is that they're always the ones that get to claim which jobs are undesirable, and they never ask the people that are actually working those jobs too, which I always thought was interesting.
Yeah, I'd say a dedicated run from Houston to Dallas is probably a very common job for a lot of, number one, big fleets. I can tell you the large carriers that move hub and spoke are moving a lot between I-45. I mean, I think the highway itself, the numbers. I mean, that highway is valued at a certain dollar amount of
Yeah,
the amount of freight that moves up it.
well, Too Simple put it at well, granted, this is a couple of years ago and before Too Simple imploded, type of thing, but they put it at about $4 billion a year, and I think Aurora said it was about 8,000 trucks a day. I'm not sure if that's one way or both, but yeah, that's it's a hell of a lot of paychecks and a lot of taxpayers that are going up and down that road there.
Yeah, for sure. I gotta only because I don't want to take up your whole night, but questions for you, like, what is your general advice? What would you tell a truck driver to do right now? Like if you yourself are behind the wheel and you've met hundreds of drivers since this, and you've gone on multiple shows, but what's your advice to what drivers should do? How do they get involved? What do they do to get ahead of it?
As far as getting ahead of it, so the markets that are going to be predominantly targeted first here are going to be dry van, reefer, intermodal, and then there's even some talk about wiggle wagons type of thing. Most of these trucks are going to be concentrated down in like Texas to start off with, and then Aurora is going to be pushing west out to out to Arizona. It sounds like Kodiak is pushing east. As far as Plus AI, which is the other 800-pound gorilla in the room that there's virtually no information out on, who the hell knows, type of a deal. But yeah, that's going to be like the geographic area that's going to be predominantly impacted first, type of thing. And yeah, the best piece of advice I could say is just diversify skill sets. So if you're talking about getting endorsements, or moving, getting experience in any like non-automatable type of trucking, flatbedding, heavy haul, hazmat, school buses full of kids, like that type of thing, would be the best places to go. So, and then it's not also just the driving jobs. It's also going to be admin jobs are going to get screwed, type of thing in a very major way. So yeah, like diversifying skill sets, I think would be the best thing to do. The quote unquote good news is that to get to scale, it's going to take some time for the OEMs and the production lines to get up here or to get set up here. But if Aurora's claim of tens of thousands of trucks by the end of the decade, each one of those trucks is going to be able to displace between like 2 and 3 drivers potentially. So if Aurora and Kodiak put out 10,000 trucks apiece, now we're talking about displacing upwards of 50,000 loads or 50,000 paychecks. And these are trucks that are going to be operating like 18, 22 hours a day, something like that. So that's something else to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I think transcends all this, and we kind of were talking about it earlier, is how this issue transcends politics, and this kind of shows you that there is no right and left, there's no red and blue in all this. Because FreightWaves just came out with an article today, because you kind of said quasi California earlier, and we know, and when we think about politics in the binary, like how we see it on TV, the conservatives do like to they believe they like to they won the last federal election because they catered to the working class. I think that's like that has been understood by basically any major journalist, whichever media outlet. They've kind of conceded to the fact that even Senator Sanders said it himself, like liberals, Democrats did not cater to the working class, to the middle class. They're only kind of focused on one area of trying to impress that they've already got, and it's kind of lost them this last election. But what's crazy is how this does transcend the both sides argument, because Texas seems to be very, when you think of Texas, you think of it being very pro blue collar. It's a southern state, southwestern sort of state. In the red states are thumbs up on kind of this big tech, but at the same time, California is also big thumbs up on it. California's had a big tech exodus over the past few years. Just today, FreightWaves released an article, about Governor Newsom. He vetoed a measure to block port automation. We're kind of seeing the same thing on the West Coast that we saw earlier.
Wait, did you say that Newsom vetoed a bill or what did Newsom do?
Yeah, so this came out today on the 15th. Big shout out to Stuart over at FreightWaves. Labor unions are criticizing California Governor Newsom after he vetoed a measure aimed at protecting longshore jobs by limiting the use of public funds for port automation. Newsom said in a statement that the bipartisan SB 34 legislation would limit ports' flexibility and modernization and undercut operational efficiency and competitiveness. He added that he favored modernization in tandem with other worker protections, and that shipping interests had opposed the measure, along with environmental groups and community advocates who said it would have tied the hands of local air districts, limiting their ability to enforce regulations to curb pollution from ports.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. So that I thought you said you did the opposite at first. It's like, whoa, that would be a huge change. Because like Newsom also vetoed AB 316, which was a Teamster supported bill that would have banned all driverless vehicles over 10,001 pounds and mandated that there be a human operator in it, type of thing. And that passed both houses in California with well over 90% yes votes, bipartisan, and he vetoed it after according to the Teamster vote really hard in the prior election. So like, I don't know. As Thumper said in Bambi, if you don't have anything nice to say about someone, don't say it at all. But I'll let your imagination wander about what I think about Gavin Newsom after doing that. And
yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. On the East Coast, the International Longshoremen's Association made a statement where they called the veto a gut punch, with Newsom siding with foreign-based ocean carriers in a betrayal of the working class.
Yeah.
which is probably the nicest thing you could say.
Yeah, no, that tracks. And then, like as far as like establishment Democrats and all that kind of stuff, like they're in the pocket, same thing as establishment Republicans. And I would go even so far to say as the Trump administration with like all the big tech stuff going on right now. So like they're all, rolling out the red carpet for all of this. And the only place where I see a caveat to that, like within the populist right and the MAGA movement and stuff, like working class folks, left, right, they all seem to be in the same page. And then like you've got other candidates out there like Josh Hawley's been surprising me quite a bit recently. And then you got folks like Bernie Sanders out there that have been, and Andrew Yang that have been preaching this for a while too. So as far as like, the working class parts of either base, everybody's on the same page. And the only outliers are pricks like Gavin Newsom and whoever else.
Yeah. Basically you're kind of textbook, copy pasta establishment politician. So that was, so so Josh Hawley, Missouri guy, right?
Yeah. I was talking to some folks recently, and he's kind of like the main labor, like pro union, pro labor guy within the populist right now. So he's been going pretty hard on winning the union vote, at least in Minneapolis or Missouri type of a thing. But yeah, I don't know. Like there's a pretty healthy pro working class clamp in either party and stuff. They just get overshadowed by everybody else.
Yeah, the dollars go a long way. Last thing I wanted to touch on, we talked about it on the phone last time we spoke. It's some of the stuff you're working on now. You're kind of looking ahead to, because the fight's not over for you. Your heels are dug in on a lot of what you got going on. And we were talking briefly about how we're kind of seeing history. History doesn't repeat. I think it paraphrases or something. I forget the term.
History doesn't repeat, but it echoes.
Yes, there it is, and there's kind of echoes going on of what we saw in coal mines, 100 or so years ago. Coal mines, steel mines, and we're seeing it happen now in trucking.
Yeah, so one of the reasons I got really interested in the trucking industry is because I did a deep dive into labor history and specifically with the mine wars, and the stuff that truckers are dealing with now is pretty much exactly the same. In my opinion, granted, there's some like structural differences between who owns what and everything, but it's pretty much exactly the same type of dynamic that coal miners were dealing with 100 years ago, type of thing in terms of labor conditions, immigration, and all that. So one of the things I've been trying to, this is going to be a tough one to make it as successful as the autonomous truck video, but I want to do something on immigration in the trucking industry, and then kind of run it through that lens. And then I'm also in talks right now about another video on manufacturing or automation in manufacturing, and basically how that's going to get screwed 6 ways from Sunday type of a deal. So that's another thing I got in my back pocket.
No, and as you're working on them, would love to have you back on, because I know on Friday Danielle Chafin's coming on, and we're going to kind of be touching on some of the issues with the non-domiciled CDLs and kind of what's been going on these past really since the Biden trucking action plan had come out, because it's continued to fracture the industry, as we've kind of said. History's kind of echoing. This happened in the coal mines with labor coming in from all corners of the world, and it's why they weren't unionizing.
Yeah, so like like the biggest like historical parallel that I see with coal mining and trucking right now is that like way back in the day, coal operators used to go directly to places like Ellis Island and get people right off the boat, and they would intentionally hire people from like Italy, Russia, Greece, Native Americans, Irish, African Americans, and all that kind of stuff. And they'd pay everybody different wages, made sure they all spoke different languages. And then they would put them in a company town, which structurally isn't too different than a truck stop type of a thing. And then piss them all off, get them all to hate each other. And when they were all busy beating the shit out of each other, the company was just running their way off to the bank type of thing with the lower wages and everything else. So it's a very similar thing to trucking right now, where you've got like the mega carriers and all these smaller like Eastern European companies just issuing fake or like companies that are like issuing like fake CDLs, putting some poor bastard behind the wheel, setting him up for failure, and getting the rest of the industry to hate him. It's pretty much the same thing, and the ultimate goal is the same, where you just want to keep the wages and compensation as low as humanly possible, right? So it's a very, very similar dynamic type of a thing. And I totally agree with the non-domicile thing being an issue, but if we're not going to be going after the people that are financially benefiting from this the most, enabling the problem, it's you're never going to solve the cancer if you're only looking at the symptoms and not the actual tumor.
Yeah, 100%. I think that there's some good movement happening from, it's work that's been done by friends of ours, Gord and Danielle and American Truckers United, and some of those people. They've been making strides, and by making strides, they've been getting the attention of the DOT. And kind of speaking, I was at the TXTA annual conference, and I kind of got to hear the other side of the advocacy. And this is information just for you. Is I kind of heard about what it's been like in Washington for the past couple of decades. At the TXTA annual, kind of speaking on what it's been like in DC, and they described, the first Trump administration as, nothing really got done in trucking because the main focus was healthcare, Obamacare, kind of getting rid of that. That's what he ran on. There was really nothing transportation related. They described the last 4 years as really, but the Biden trucking action plan is where they kind of listened. They listened to the people who are running away to the banks, as we were just talking about, and kind of came up with this plan that kind of set in motion the non-domiciled CDL stuff. But really, nothing else happened. Nothing happened transportation wise with regulations. It's just like slow. It's almost like nobody was at the wheel. Driver joke for during the Biden. I mean, now during this current presidential administration, everything is moving fast, like the AI stuff. That's why AI is moving fast. All these things, like it is lightning. They described it at the TXT annual as things are moving in this administration lightning fast, because they're big on results and the promises made, promises kept narrative that they're trying to kind of set forward.
Yeah.
And so it's actually, it's a good, like, one good thing to come out of this administration is it's pretty remarkable that the secretary is listening to drivers. They're listening to drivers and people who are doing the data on the ground, and not just large enterprises. And they're kind of listening to what a lot of these drivers are saying. So it's remarkable what they've done, and I'm excited to see what happens. But as you said, businesses need to be held responsible. The people at the top, like there is again, we can't blame the individual. So if you're a guy from, Eritrea who wound up in the United States driving a truck, that person inherently wasn't like, I'm going to go here to do this because I want to undercut America's wages. That person is a human being who is responding to an incentive to where they're looking for upward mobility and to improve their life. That option happened to have been delivered to them by somebody who wants to take advantage of them. So it's not the guy from Eritrea. It's not his fault, because any of us would do the same. Like you cut off natural resources. You cut off certain things from, like, there's a starvation mode, like humans go into starvation mode where instinct takes over. If people want to defend their family, defend their kids, that guy in Eritrea, he's doing everything he can to better his life. And that's what was presented to him, was this kind of, he was lured here malevolently by somebody who's going to make money off of his kind of indentured service. So we can't blame the guy who has the fake CDL, because that's not their intent. I don't think that there's anybody who is over in these countries being like, like rubbing their hands, like, let's undercut some American wages and destroy, like, they don't know anything about that. They don't know, they don't know about our, system and the way the economy is working over here. But when other people are going over there telling them, hey, you can come here, you can come to the US, they're the guys at Ellis Island taking them off the boat saying, hey, come work for my coal mine. You'll make this much money, and getting it together. You're right. History's kind of echoing in that perspective.
Well, that like the other side of the coin on there too is that whenever it comes to labor law is largely civil, not a punitive type of a thing. So like if any of those companies, like say, or just shifting gears a little bit, like say over in Iowa is currently like one of the worst offenders for labor law violations regarding child labor, And there's several meatpacking facilities out there have been repeatedly caught having children on the kill floors as working night shifts on kill floors like as young as 11 type of thing. There's just one spot down at Sioux City that got caught doing that again type of thing. Anytime that happens, it's just a fine. It's usually below the cost of doing business type of thing. So like there's no accountability on the labor law violation side of this. And if there is, they usually get deferred judgments type of thing where they're basically just slap on the wrist and they go back and do it anyway. So there's literally nothing to stop any of these guys from say like, abusing children by putting them on the kill floor of a slaughterhouse. Like if there's no accountability on that side of things, because like the Department of Labor and especially the NLRB has been virtually castrated. There's no one, at the federal level that's, really willing to fight that or able to.
No, you're absolutely right, man. Any final thoughts, final words of wisdom, anything you want to leave on the record? We got a good crowd tonight. Want to give a big shout out to all the homies on X watching. If you're watching on Twitter, you guys might have seen James around, especially his More Perfect Union video and everything he's been working on. He's been on Voice of Gord multiple times. But yeah, James, any final thoughts?
Yeah. So like I said before, just luckily we've got a little bit of time before the mass production starts and stuff. Outside of Class 7, there's a Class 7 driverless facility starting up, like I think next year, type of a thing. But so you got time to diversify skill sets, and then in the meantime, it turns out if you're stuck in the cab of a truck for 100 hours a week or more, you're in the perfect classroom. Audiobooks are your best friend. No one says you have to wait to go to college to get a college education. So I'd highly recommend digging into any audiobook that you can and any other interest to kind of help hedge your bets going forward.
No, absolutely, 100%. Number one, I got to give a big shout out to Taylor tuning in. Great chat, guys. There's a lot of challenges right now in the trucking industry, and educating the mass public is very important. Keep up the good work. They're absolutely right. Taylor's absolutely right. Is I think having these conversations is important. We shouldn't be hiding from having these conversations. They should. We're talking again. This transcends politics. This transcends the culture wars, identity. Everything that everybody's arguing about, it transcends it all, and it's truly unifying because it's. I think there's a part of me that knows this stuff. The conversation we've had is what can finally bridge the gap to bring people together, for people to kind of peel the film off of some of their biases and some of their predispositions and some of their ego, to finally see like, oh crap, we are all human. We probably should, like, I am my brother's keeper. We need to be looking out for our neighbors left and right, because we're at the point now where, like a virus, it's not just coming for and number one, everybody thought it was going to come for the truck driver first. It hasn't. Drivers are still out there hauling that freight. It's coming, as you said, that AGI stuff. It's coming for the CPAs who make six-figure salaries, who own homes, who do a bunch of people and businesses taxes. And there's no need for the CPA anymore. I'd love, and I bet you there's a lot of CPAs who love ChatGPT, who love using OpenAI and all that stuff. I bet you it's made their job a whole lot better. But they're feeding the monster that's going to kill them.
Yep. Yeah, and like, I'm just kind of piggybacking off of what you said there too. Like the left-right culture war stuff, it's bullshit. It turns out when you get out and actually talk to people and everything, everybody agrees on 95% of everything. It's just 5% of all the rest of the bullshit that we get shoveled in front of our face every day is, it's minuscule compared to everything else that we all agree on. But the sooner that we all figure that out, the better off we're all going to be.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I want to thank you for jumping back on the show and having a good conversation like this. Really, really need it myself. Definitely let us know when you're able to move things forward about the kind of the immigration issue in trucking and some of the other stuff you're working on, so we can bring you back up here and freaking rip about it.
No, absolutely. And then, I got a couple other questions for you about truck parking too. So don't go anywhere quite yet.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Hang out. I'm going to walk this one out and we'll rip it.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right, guys, that'll do it. That was episode 167 of the Lombard Trucking Show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Last remarks from me really is, again, I can't stress this enough, that this has nothing to do with stopping curing cancer. There's nothing to do with saying, hold on, we shouldn't be going to the moon. hold on, we like, because obviously going to the moon is what gave us things like the MRI machine and all these fantastic innovations. I get that there can be some good from this technology. Let's let it focus on that. Let's let this technology focus on that, because we see we're not in a culture war right now. There's this spiritual war sort of going on. We see it with the mental health in this country, and that's why I've been doing the 30 days of hot takes on Instagram, as just like kind of thought provoking things that make sense. Some of them I'm very full bore on. Some I just believe need to be listened to more. And I think the topics need to be investigated. Like one of them being, like, especially if there was no separation of church and state, we'd have free healthcare. Please go watch the movie Cabrini if you haven't, to learn about just exactly what Mother Cabrini did for healthcare, more than any Rockefeller, more than any Carnegie, more than any billionaire. You can see what one nun did for healthcare along the way. When it comes to mental health in this country, we don't need more therapists. We don't need more people going to therapy. We need more people talking to people. We need more community. And you don't get that with AI. You don't get more community with fake intelligence. You don't get more community with robots. You don't get more community by jumping in a Waymo cab. You don't get more community with any of that. Instead, you get more depression. We have never been this connected to other human. We've never had an opportunity to be this connected to other human beings ever before, ever. I want you to think like dudes to write home to they were writing letters, 18-year-olds writing letters to their moms in the trenches in France. And that was their, human connection to who they know back home. Now you can virtually talk to anyone, anywhere, anytime, 24 hours a day. And we have people who are the most depressed. We have people who have a severe lack of purpose. And we somehow think that more robots and chat GPT and developing more relationships. And I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but that's why I have a podcast. You want to riff on a tangent, you can too. Unusual Whales Twitter today. Chat GPT will soon allow verified adults to engage in erotic conversations. Is that really where we're going? Is that the future AI is supposed to deliver us to, where consenting adults are now going to have erotic conversations with robots? I want you to think that. And if you're going to stare me in the face back and say, you're the horse breeder saying the car shouldn't be invented, you're a fucking dumbass. And that's the dumbest thing that I've ever heard. So sorry, will always be a human supremacist show. This technology should move forward in a lot of ways. We should be using it to cure cancer. People should be throwing millions of dollars at this technology to cure cancer. But if you're using it to make fake advertisements and fake videos, trying to tarnish reputations, getting involved in our politics, which is now going to sway votes, we need to realize that in the elections to come, we're not going to know what's real, what people are actually saying. We're not going to know if what that speech was what we saw on the internet, because of how good these videos are going to get. Is that the future? Is that the future? And again, as millions upon millions into the billions gets funneled into this, that money could all be going towards something else a little bit better, something else a little bit more concrete, that for 2,000 years has been doing a lot for healthcare, that for 2,000 years has been doing a lot to help the sick and help the poor and help the needy. But that's neither here nor there. But other than that, that's going to do it for episode 167. I'll see you guys Friday, 2 p.m. Central Time. Danielle Chafin's coming on the show. But with that, we're going.